so.
You want to drive?
Oh, yeah, I guess. I forgot. My bad. Are we recording?
Yep.
Oh, man.
We're back for part 2.
Oh, God.
Oh my God. Watch out, everybody.
Wait till the light.
Is port number important?
Do I?
Is the port number important?
Leave it default. Should be like 5432.
Yeah, leave it default.
Oh, sad that I know that. Alright. I think you actually have my chair this time and you're wanting
This is my chair.
God.
This has been my chair since class 1.
Whatever.
part 1.
Whatever.
See what I did there?
I see what you did. I kind of liked it. I wasn't going to say anything, but I did. All right. Okay, guys. I kind of want you to follow along with me on this. We're going to be writing a little bit of code now, but more than anything else, we're going to be looking at a couple other sections of Rails and interfacing with a new facet of Rails that we haven't used previously. So for this example, like many others, I'm doing this on purpose so that it gets drilled into everybody's head. How do we start a Rails application?
You install a gem.
Well, we have the gems installed.
Just type the word Rails new.
Okay, we're going in the right direction. Rails new.
Name whatever file.
Name whatever we want the application to be called, right? All right. We'll call this Blue Jigsaw-Pug.
Again?
We already on this again?
All right, Blue. Oh, God.
Oh, Lord, now.
Stuck already?
I'll call it test app. Man, you killed my buzz.
Like I typed in Ruby and it just.
Hit Control C
Thank you.
or Command C, one of those.
All right. Does everybody have a test app generated?
And just doing things.
Okay. Doing things is good.
Okay, I'm not open one.
Everybody done?
No.
Not quite? Okay.
I'm at the run button will install. Okay, well, okay, good.
Okay.
Wait, no, I got an error.
Yeah, both got errors?
I got the JSON error.
Speaking of which, let me check. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't have to worry about that. This is his work machine, so he switches versions of Ruby at work. I wanted to make sure we were using the right one.
You said you got an error?
You go old school?
Okay. You guys go back to old school?
Old school.
Oh,
What?
like 1.9 or something.
Oh, no, not that old. No. Alright. So while he's helping him, let's go on and look at a different section of our folder structure that we haven't looked at before. And I'm going to just add a folder to my project. I swear I'm gonna find this code. There we go. Alright. So there's our Rails application. Okay. Now, everybody see their folder structure?
Yes.
Good? Okay.
Where'd you find test apps?
It's going to be in a different spot for me than it is for you. It's wherever you did Rails new whatever app.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. So I want you to open up the gem file in the root of the project.
He did it in Sublime.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you do it in. We're just looking at the files. That's all. You can look up here if you want to for this part. There's nothing for you to type. All right. So this is called the gem file. All right. This works very close with Bundler. So you know that big massive bundle install that you see when we say Rails new, yada yada yada, okay? What that's doing is that's going and getting all these gems and pulling them down and installing them, making sure you have the correct version for what you're trying to do. Where it gets that information is the gem file, okay? Your gem file is a list of gems that your application requires in order to run. These are the gems that Rails packages and distributes by default. Okay? These can be changed. But the one I want to point out here is SQLite 3. Okay? By default, with a new Rails application, the database that you used is not Postgres, it's SQLite 3. SQLite 3 is a relational database system that is extremely lightweight, okay? And it stores your entire database in one flat file, a regular file on your computer. So it's very portable, it's very lightweight, it's fairly fast, not overly fast. It's good for getting started, but in our later applications we will be changing that to Postgres most likely. But for this example, all we need to know, all we really care about, is that we have some database there and that it's a relational database. As long as those two criteria are met and the type of database we're using is supported by Active Record, our ORM, we're good to go. So all of these gems here, okay, you can look at these, you can look at this one, you can look at these couple down here, have a number next to them. That's the version that it's looking for. You'll notice some funny symbols next to some of the version numbers, which are some different instructions that specify how far it's allowed to deviate from a specific version. Don't worry too much about that. Either way, when you say bundle install, or you say Rails new and get a new application, let's say you added a new gem in here, okay? I'm actually going to add one, okay? And y'all can too. If you go to the very bottom of the file, okay? I'm going to say gem, and inside quotes, I'm going to say pry-rails. Okay?
Single quotes.
Everybody got that? Okay. All right, so save the file and go back to your terminal. Now, if you haven't already done it, change your directory into the directory of your application. Remember, change directory CD in the directory name. Now, this is where we get all our Rails commands and stuff like that, right? There's another set of commands that we get too. We can talk directly to Bundler. Okay? Bundler is the gem that handles our dependencies and stuff like that. So we just added that gem to our gem file. We don't have it yet though. Okay? We're basically telling the system we want it. The way we get it now is by typing bundle install. Okay? And you'll see that it's trying to go to rubygems.org, find the missing gems, and it's installing it and all of its dependencies. All the green ones are the new things that just got installed. Now, if there's nothing to install, this happens much quicker. We're done. Okay? The reason why is because even though we put new additions and stuff like that inside of our gem file, the actual gems, which you can see we have a lot more gems listed here than we do in our gem file, don't we? And all of them have versions next to them where some of them don't in our gem file, right? When we say bundle install, this file gets made. gemfile.lock. Okay? Do not ever modify this file by hand. Okay? If you do, you're probably going to break something.
Oh.
In fact, I'm going to say 99% odds you're going to break something. And the reason is because
It's like Elite 30 system to break, or is it like?
it doesn't break your whole system. It breaks your application then. So the reason why is because all of the gems that we're installing, they have dependencies, right? Specific versions of specific gems. It depends on specific versions of specific gems. Those gems depend on other gems, specific versions of those gems, okay? And it goes on and on and on. What Bundler does is it looks through the system, finds out exactly what gems are required, and then finds out all of its dependencies and gets the exact versions of those and locks all of them by dependency tree here in this file. And so if you change, for instance, let's look here at multi-JSON. If I change this to 2.0, I don't even know if there is a 2.0, but if I changed it to 2.0 and there was one, the next time I said bundle install, it'd go out to the web and try to pull down 2.0.
And if there wasn't one, would it freak out?
It would give an error.
Yeah.
But if there was, it would pull it down and it would install it. But guess what? It would either throw another error, or if it's unlucky enough to slip through the cracks, your application wouldn't even run then. Because the odds of JBuilder being able to talk that big of a difference in version of multi-JSON is slim to none. You see how it's nested beneath JBuilder? That means those are two dependencies of JBuilder. Okay? So that's how dependencies are kind of managed in Rails. And when you commit this file to source control and your friends go and clone the repository or do a pull, guess what? This file goes with it. So even if they pull it 6 months later and gems have updated all over the place, you know, the same versions aren't the newest versions anymore. If they say bundle install, it's going to run against these files and they'll still get the right versions. So the application will still run properly.
So you don't have to constantly keep updating the program and all the gems inside of it.
Right, bundle install handles that for you.
Not
So
really.
here, you'll notice that we've got some groups. Okay? Now, judging by the names, you can probably guess what the groups are. Okay? Those are modes. Alright? So we have a development mode, we have a test mode, and we have a production mode. Those three modes come built in with every Rails application that you make. Alright? So by default, when we start one on our local machine, it's running development. When we run our test suite, it's running against the test environment. When we deploy to production, we pass it a special flag that tells it to run in production mode. Okay? Now, the reason why you want these separate environments is because sometimes you're developing on something and you're not ready for it to go to production yet. Or, in this case, look at BuyBug there, okay? That gem that I have selected, okay? It's included in the group development and in the group test. Okay? Biobug is a gem that helps you debug stack traces, or sorry, not stack traces, debug code executing in your console. All right? Now, I don't need that in production, do I? No one's going to have access to my console in production. So, I don't include that gem in the production build. That's how I exclude it. I don't list it there. It's only included with development and test builds. It's not included with production builds. That keeps it from including a bunch of unneeded gems that bloat the application, stuff like that, when we're never going to use it. And sometimes they're vulnerabilities. For instance, this one down here, web console. That one's only included with development. It would allow you to get to your console through the web page. I'd never publish that. So this is a good way of grouping and controlling what gets deployed. Now it kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I wanted to talk about those because we're about to use a couple of them. So we installed Pry, right? Pry Rails. Okay. Now we talked about IRB, didn't we? Right? Okay. Now, IRB is a console. Go ahead.
Do we need to adjust our end? The end?
No, that's a group.
Okay.
Look at what it's paired with. It's paired with one of those blocks.
So we're not under development right now. That's
Well,
what
you're not inside of a module or a class.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can type IRB. You can get inside IRB, right? Okay. We just installed Pry though. Pry is a little bit more sophisticated of a console. It interfaces with IRB, if you will, okay? But gives you some better functionality. It's a little bit quicker, and it honestly looks a little bit better. So by typing Pry, you can get into Pry. And it operates just the same way IRB does. But you'll notice it's got some better coloring, and instead of clustering, you remember the big messy dump of methods that I got the time I printed out the methods on an integer or something like that? Well, it formats that a little bit nicer now. Stuff like that. You know, so it's a little bit nicer of a console. Now, we just installed the gem Pry Rails. Okay? So the kind of a message there is that somehow we get to use Pry with Rails, right? So if I just type Rails and I look at my list of possible commands, we usually use Rails server to start our application. There's another one there next to it called Rails console though, right? So let's type Rails console and see what we get. Well, normally it would open up with IRB, but it just started a development instance of my Rails application in console mode, and now I have a Pry interface to it. Not very useful right now because I don't have a lot of code to run. So let's make some code that I can play with. Okay? So
my rail says 4.251. Is that going to hold me back?
horribly.
Shit.
No, I'm just messing. Okay, so I want to generate something. Okay? Let's look at our list of generators. Okay? Our list of generators, normally when we're in here at this part, we generate a controller, right? And usually that's associated with a controller and a web page or something like that. I want to generate something different this time. Let's work at the other end of the spectrum of Rails. Let's work at the data end of Rails today. So let's pretend we're making a contact application, an address book. Okay? It's easy enough. So let's pretend we're making a UML for a contact class. Y'all remember what a UML is, right?
Markup language.
All right. So well, it's a modeling language, but yeah, it's
Uniform?
unified. But that's okay. It's not really important what the words mean. I mean, it's important what it is. I mean, do y'all remember what a UML is? I gave y'all a UML diagram of sortable list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Had a list of all the methods and stuff that went on it. Okay. What do I need for a contact? Let's not think about the methods or the behavior right now, though. What properties do I need? What attributes does a contact have?
Like name,
A name.
address, phone number.
Okay, let's take them a few at a time. So let's start with name, and how about email? Okay. So and let's even break it up. Let's do first name and last name instead of just one name. Okay. Now, in Rails, when we want a model that's backed by the database, a Ruby class or an object that's backed by the database, we have a generator to help us make that. Okay? And we say Rails generate model. I'm using the shortcut G. Okay? And what do you think the next thing is?
Name of that.
It's the name of the model. So we're going to call it contact. And this next syntax is a little weird, but don't get tripped up on it. It's actually pretty simple. But after contact, what do you think the next thing we need is?
The modulus symbol. Percent sign.
That's incorrect.
Hash rocket.
That's incorrect. Well, we need the properties, the attributes that we want on this contact. It doesn't have to be all of them, but it needs to be all of them that we plan on storing in the database. Now we can leave a few out because we can add them later, but let's go ahead and add the few we were talking about. So first name, last name, and email. So I'm going to say first name, and I'm printing it just like I would the variable name. So snake case, all right. And I'm going to put a colon immediately after it without a space. And without putting a space again, I'm going to say string. Okay? And the reason why I'm doing that, because Ruby doesn't care what type it is, right? The database does. The database needs to know it's a string or an integer or a Boolean. You have to specify it for the database because it needs to know what to store.
Okay.
So the first name is a string. The last name is a string. And the email is a string. You don't have to put commas anywhere to delimit them. Every time there's a space, it thinks you're talking about another property. So, okay, everybody got that?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Hit enter, and it just generated several files, not just one or two. So everything below test unit right here, don't worry about right now. Okay, that's regarding testing. You know, like I showed y'all with RSpec and whatnot. Those are some test files that got generated for us, so we can fill in tests for that class. We're not going to do any of that yet. We might not even get to that at all. But these two we need to care about. So this is our class that just got generated for us, right? Contact.rb, right? And it looks like it's in our app models folder. So let's go to our app models folder. There's our contact file. And there we are. Okay. So we have a contact class inheriting from active record base. Okay. That syntax I know looks a little bit funny. Okay. I'll explain to you what that means right here below it. I'm going to erase this afterwards though because it'll break the file if I leave it. But in that example, the class is base. All right, I'm saying essentially inherit from base. But what they did is they namespaced it. Okay, and they did that by wrapping it in a module called active record. Okay. Now the reason they did that is because if you yourself have a class called base in your application and they gave you another class just called base, the two would overwrite one another.
Like, do you cancel each other out?
They, well, whichever one got loaded second would overwrite the first one. But so by namespacing it and putting it in a module, the signatures are now different. Now mine can still be called base because his is called active record : base. Okay? So it's just a namespace. It's a way of grouping classes and things together. Alright? Active record has a lot of classes. Base is usually the only one you really have to worry about dealing with directly. And you don't really have to deal with it directly, you're inheriting from it, so it's kind of indirectly dealing with it. But anyway, now you'll notice I don't have any of my attributes here. I don't have any of them listed here. First name, last name, email, none of them are in here, are they? There's no ATTR accessor first name, last name, email, is there? Why not? Because there doesn't have to be. Remember, that stuff's not required, it's optional. An object in Ruby gets an attribute when you bring an attribute to life. Okay? So the moment you assign an instance variable, that instance variable exists on the object. Okay? So we don't have to worry about defining it ahead of time. Now, let's look at this other file that got generated. This one's a little bit more interesting. So if you look at the other file that got generated, it generated inside of db migrate, and it's called something like 20160413005100 create contacts. That is a time date stamp, correct. We'll talk about why later, but for now, just find that file at that location. It should be the only migration file that's there. So I'm under DB. I'm not under app anymore. Migrate. And this long freaking file. And I open it up.
That's quite the file.
Oh, well, I was talking about the name, but yeah.
I know that.
Right here, we've got a class, and it's inheriting from one of those other rare active record classes. Okay, it's called migration. All right. Here, we have a single method called change, and this utilizes internal methods off of the migration class to give instructions on how to construct the table inside the database. Okay? So it's saying create a table called contacts. I need a string column for first name, a string column for last name, a string column for email, and I want timestamps. Timestamps is a method that it gives you out of the box that is actually pretty useful, and we'll talk more about them later. I'm not going to try to explain what it is now because it's easier to show you here in a second. Now, the change method and a migration is a little bit different from just saying, okay, well, why didn't I write some SQL statements to generate the table? I could. That's how you generate tables, with SQL statements. That's how you put data in tables, with SQL statements. A migration is a little bit different, though, because a migration is almost a single, you can think of it as a single step in generating a database. Okay? Every change that you make to your database, every table you create, every table you destroy, you create a migration for that. And what happens is when you get ready to set up a database, all of those instructions, all of those migrations run first to last. Okay? So, what that allows me to do is something pretty dang cool. Let's say I had a multi-million-dollar application with a massive database. Hundreds of tables. Easily. Hundreds of tables. And we'll say tons, at least 100,000 records per table of proprietary customer data. Valuable information. They'd probably be pissed if we lost it. Okay?
Or give it to somebody else back.
Yeah. We accidentally wrote a migration that clobbered somebody's data. We accidentally removed a column from a table when we should have removed it from this table. Okay? We can roll that change back. Okay? In our database schema. Now you have to plan a little bit ahead of time to do that.
You have to make the backup button. You can't just press it.
You have to make the backup of the data, but we schedule regular backups for all of our data. But the schema, I don't have to start back from the beginning. I don't have to go in by hand and go, well crap, let me remove this column now since this dang automatic script added it in the wrong place. I can literally call, oh, that was 3 migrations that we did for that. Okay, roll back 3 migrations. And the Rails system is smart enough to where it will look at this method called change and figure out how to run the reverse of it. So here it's running some code to create a table. The Rails system analyzes that code and says, I'm creating a table here. I guess I ought to destroy it for, being able to run the reverse. It can do that with some pretty incredible code. It's a very smart system. Now, for migrations that are too complex to do that, instead of seeing one change method, you'll see 2 methods in here. One is called up and the other is called down. Up is the instructions to set up whatever it is you want that's new. Down is the reverse operation to fix it in case you have to roll back. Okay?
And depending on what we're asking it to do, it'll generate those 2 methods?
Yep.
Wow.
Now you can also write these by hand. Sometimes what you'll do is be like, well, I don't need a model, I don't need this, I don't need that, I just need a migration to move some data around. Something like that. Okay? You can write Rails G migration, give it a name, and it will generate an empty one for you. And you can go fill in the instructions yourself here. So, anyway.
Why did it pluralize contacts?
Because we want to store many contacts.
So, that's what I'm saying. Intuitively,
It figured it out, yeah. It won't even just add an S onto the end of stuff. If you've got a person class, it'll generate a people collection. It has a dictionary attached to it, and it puts it to use. So that's pretty cool because it makes the code pretty readable at that point, and it just makes me happy seeing people go the extra mile to make stuff like that. So anyway, that's me geeking out for a moment, sorry. Anyway, so let's run this guy. Okay, we already have a database adapter set up. We have one for SQLite, right? So we don't need to create a database anywhere, but we're going to anyway. So if you'll notice in here, we don't have a database file right now inside of your DB folder. Okay, this is normally not where your big databases would live anyway, like Postgres and whatnot. But your SQLite files, remember I told you they write to flat files? They'll go in this folder. So back in your terminal over here, we're going to learn another command, and this one's not a Rails one either. Okay, it's called rake, and you're going to run rake db colon create. You're probably getting all kinds of flashbacks back there. Don't worry too much about deciphering this right now. There's not many rake tasks that you have to remember. We will get to probably writing a couple of them, but we'll explain all that after you become more familiar with Rails. Right now, just understand that this specific command will create your database. It doesn't matter whether you're set up to create an SQLite database or a Postgres database or a MySQL database. It will connect to that database server with the credentials that you have in your config file, and it will create your dang database for you. It's pretty impressive. Now, if you run that, you don't get any output, but because we're using SQLite, we can come over here and we can see that it actually worked. If you look in that folder, we have a development.sqlite3 file and a test.sqlite3 file now. All right. The one we really care about is the development.sqlite3. Okay. Now, let's do the next step now, though, because all we've done so far is generate an empty database. It doesn't even have any tables in it. That doesn't run your migrations. It just creates the database. Okay. So, if you want to take a guess at what the next command will be, oh, too late. db:/migrate. All right. If you run that, it goes through all your migrations. We only have one though. Okay. There we go.
The migrations. Oh.
Migration singular.
Right. If we had 3, you and I pushed up right now, those would be.
Oh yeah, those would all run back to back. Now you'll notice though, if I run this again, nothing happens.
Okay.
And it's because it's already run the migration once. It doesn't need to run it again, right?
No changes have been made.
Right. But I can roll it back. I can say, oh crap, guys, we didn't mean to release that. DB rollback. See it say it's reverting?
Does it not look like that? No, mine does not look like that.
So we want to stay migrated though, because we're about to use the contacts table.
Yeah, I got an error message.
Why doesn't it look like
Did you
that?
look that right quick?
Oh, you're in the. I don't know where you were at.
Went back to Sublime.
Well, see, it's full of.
Are people trying to catch up?
I just
He was in.
opened my Sublime and it's a whole bunch of zeros. And
Hold on, I know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a GUI.
Oh no,
Damn.
God.
Good try.
It's because you're looking at your development.sqlite3 file. It's because the data that's stored in there is not human readable.
To you muggles, but me.
It's what you're looking at is probably like bytecode and stuff like that. So
Where's your migration?
it was, yes. It was a very powerful Harry Potter reference.
I've only watched the first 3, I think. I think it was the first 3. Sorry.
All right, so now that we've created our table, okay.
Yes.
We already have our model. We have our table. We have a database running that has that. Let's play with it a little bit. So we put in pry so that we could use that with our Rails application, correct? So let's start up Rails console again. And it says loading development environment, yada yada yada. Yep.
Did it choose pry for us? Because we put pry in there, right? I
We
mean,
put pry Rails in there.
yeah.
What's going on?
Bitching about.
See, my Rails version is 4.25.
You see? I didn't see what it said.
Just having a voice.
Oh. Oh, there was a plus inside the generation statement. What the heck is going on there? Yeah, so she needs to do this. there was a typo when you ran your generate model, and so one of your properties had a plus sign in it. It was a last name. Instead of last underscore, it was last plus name.
Okay.
And you can't use symbols as column names in any database system. So the database was getting angry at you for trying to do that.
Okay.
Anyway, all right. So we've got our we're in pry now. Okay. Well, we're not just in any random instance of pry. We're actually using pry with a running instance of your Rails application. This is the same as if you were running Rails server. Okay. The web server is not actively serving right now, but we can still interface and interact with any of your models, with any of your routes, with any of your controllers. We can run and execute code here and play with those models as if we were in IRB playing with integers or anything like that. So I don't have a dog class, for example, right? We haven't defined one, but I do have a contact one. Now it says, oh, there's no connection to the database right now. That doesn't mean it can't make one. It means it hasn't had to make one yet. So how do we work with arrays? Let's say I want the first item in an array. So I want the first contact in the database. How would I ask for that?
dot first.
There's
Do
a
I?
version
I didn't hear the first part of what you said. What was it?
You said IO, so I was thinking,
No, I didn't say IO.
you didn't say IO?
Uh-uh.
Undo contact bracket 0.
Okay, close.
DB?
No, not DB. Contact was closer.
Contact dot first.
All right. Contact dot first.
I thought you said IO, that's why I said IO dot first.
Oh. And look at what it prints out. It prints out this nice little SQL statement for us. It's showing us what it ran when it went to run to the database. So it said, select all the columns from contacts in the contacts table, order it by contacts, order it by the ID on contacts in ascending order, limit of 1. Limit of 1 means only return 1. So it's going to return the one at the top of whatever list it's looking at. So that's how we got our first. Okay? Now, it gave us back nil. Why did it give us back nil?
I have nothing inside.
Oh, you know. Yeah. There's no contact yet. It's like asking for the first item in an empty array. We don't have anything in there. Right? So let's make a contact. So if this were a regular Ruby object, a regular Ruby class called contact, how would I make it?
If it was a class.
Not how would I save it to the database? How would I just new one up? How would I instantiate one?
Oh, dot new, contact dot new.
Contact.new. Okay. Now I want to assign that to a variable, right? So I'll call it my contact equals contact.new. See, this console is kind of nice. It shows you all the attributes in real time and stuff like that it's got on it. I really like Pry by comparison to IRB. It's pretty good. Now, it's got an ID, it's got a first name, a last name, an email, a created at, and an updated at. The created at and updated at, we didn't define those anywhere. It's on there anyway. The ID, we talked about that earlier. It automatically gets that. So the ID is our primary key, right? But right now, this is just a plain object. It's not been saved to the database. And really, we don't have anything there worth saving yet. So how do I set the name and the email? This is going to trip some people up. It's not confusing, but you haven't been doing it much recently.
T dot string.
Oh God.
I'm just looking at the file.
No. So it's not anything confusing. If I want to set the first name, I'm going to say first name equals Jeremiah. Okay. We just went back to that other syntax, that the kind of syntax that you remember ATTR accessor gave you, where you don't have to pass it in a method. You say dot something equals. Okay. We're back to that. It is still a method that's running. In fact, I ought to explain that probably next class if we've got time, how that method works, because that's a handy method just to know. Let's set last name now. Okay, so my contact dot last name. Okay, and I'm gonna set the email. Actually, no, I'm not gonna set the email. I'm not gonna set the email yet. Okay. All right, so if I just type my contact by itself, that lets me see what it's got, right? So I now have a first name and I have a last name. No email, no created at, no updated at, and no ID. Let me explain this, and it's important that you understand this. You can set the ID on a model. It will get overwritten. Okay? You should never set it yourself. Unless the type of database you happen to be using requires you to. But that's going to be a design decision you make way ahead of time. 99.9% of the time when dealing with these things, do not set the ID on something yourself. When you try to save the record to the database, it will assign it an ID, and it will give it back to you to tell you what it assigned. So let's assign this guy, let's save it to the database. So we don't want to have to write SQL, right, to do that. How do you think I do it with this magical ORM? It's not a trick question. Somebody give me the simplest thing you could do.
Save.
Contact save.
My contact save. Save is just a method. Call it. It runs the SQL, commits the transaction, and we got a true back saying that it all ran properly. I still have my contact model, but let's look at what's changed on it. I now have an ID. I now have a created at and an updated at value. See those? So I got the ID one back from the database. The created at and updated at, you remember when we were looking at the migration, I said that method down there, t.timestamps, it'd be easier to show you what it does. That's what it does. It adds a created at and an updated at column to your model, and it will automatically keep track of those for you, so you don't have to update those yourself. So created at obviously is going to keep track of the day and time that record was first created in the database. Updated at is going to be stamped every single time a change to that record is made inside the database.
Is it wrong? Why is it the wrong date?
It's not.
That's not how they.
It's in UTC.
Databases go off of the UTC clock because databases have to be and operate internationally, regardless of what time zone they're in.
Is it the future?
Well, it's not the future really. That's the record. But if I requested the information back, it would take my time zone into account and take off the hours. So.
Oh. Never mind. I got it, I think. I'm just from the play.
So let's run an update now. I want to set my email now. Okay. So I've still got my contact here, right? I'm gonna set it to john@synapse.ws. Yeah, I know, I'm messing with you. MySkyCoach.com. All right, and I set that. Okay. now my contact has an email, but it's not in the database. Okay? And I think, well, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. There is a method. I can't remember what it is. I don't really use it that often because it's considered poor practice, but there is a method that will tell you whether or not.
Did you just call sort on that to put it in alphabetical order for you?
Yeah, I did.
I like that.
I don't remember what it is. I'll find it some other time.
Are you? What I was going to ask you was how you find the contact if you had multiple, but I didn't want to. I'm sure.
No, we're about to get there.
That's what I thought you were.
Yep. I'll stop wasting time on that. So we know I still need to save this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think I do that?
My contact dot save.
Oh God, that was complicated. You'll notice now though the SQL that runs isn't an insert statement, it's an update.
Update. Just call itself an update.
It knows that the record already exists,
So you're updating the record.
and I'm updating the existing one. So now nothing's really changed for me except my updated app. If you look at the two updated at stamps, they're different because it automatically stamped it for me when I called save. Now, right now I've only got one contact. But let's say I wanted to get all of the contacts back. How do I do that?
My contact dot all.
Not my contact.all. What does my contact.all do? You're asking.
Contacts is your file. Sorry.
Well, no. Like my contact is a single contact out of that database, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have a method called .all. What does have a method probably called all?
The main folder.
Singular. Contact. You call these on the class.
Class.
Okay? So contact.all. These are called class functions. You don't execute them on a single instance of a class. You execute them on the class itself.
Is that why the class is uppercase?
Yes.
Because I like it. Okay.
Because I'm calling these methods actually on the class.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's an inherited method from active record.
Mm-hmm. All of these are. So you'll notice I got the same data back, but it's inside of an array. It returned me an array of all the contacts. Just so happens I'm the only one. So let's create another contact. But instead of going through the trouble of creating a whole object and stuff like that and then calling save on it, let's just do it in one shot because we can do that too. So I'm going to use another class method on contact called create. And I'm going to say, all right, follow me here. It accepts a hash. Okay? Now, the hash that it takes is the symbol of the attribute as the key and the value you want there as the value for that key. So I'm going to say I want colon first name to be John, colon last name to be Macy. That's all I'll put there. I won't put the email. Now, if everybody can honestly tell me they can read a hash like that and they understand what it means, I'll show you a trick to where you don't have to look at that ugly mess anymore.
See the magic trees, dude.
Okay. It is still a hash, and this only works in Rails. So in regular Ruby, you still have to write hashes this way. But in Rails, if it's this format, symbol pointing to a value of some kind, you can write it this way. And that's a lot more intuitive. Okay. Now y'all promised me.
We promise.
I've got it on record.
Our
Or
assignment
Rails.
is gonna involve hashes.
It is
A big
now.
one.
Does there need to be a space after, there's a space after that colon?
Yes, that it's not like we were doing the generator. There's supposed to be a space there. Yeah. Basically what you're saying is I've got a key first name, its value is this. I've got a key last name, its value is this. I like that Rails did this. I hate that Ruby has not done this. I like that Rails did it though because that's the more standard way of looking at a hash. Remember when we were looking at what JSON looked like? That's the way maps looked. That's the way hashes looked in JSON. That's the way they look in JavaScript. That's the way they look in standard dictionaries in other languages. Ruby just decided to be weird. Well, I know why they did it. It's because they've already used the colon on one side of the word. They don't want to have to use it on both. But it's kind of a sad excuse in my opinion. Anyway.
Maybe a later update.
Maybe a later update, man. Anyway, let's run that. And it went ahead and created that guy for me. It's in the database now. It also returned me a reference to the object, so I could have assigned that to a variable if I wanted to, but I didn't. But now I can say contact.all, and I've got 2 contacts in the database.
Sure.
This is why I tried to spend a lot of time talking about what a plain Ruby object was, how they behaved and stuff like that, because you would not be able to tell what the difference between Ruby and Rails was if we had started with this.
Is that just that memory marker up there, the green hashtag, under above ID?
You mean the pointer?
Yeah, that's the pointer.
Yeah, that's the location in memory that object is stored at. That is it's an address.
And I'm curious, does it stay the same? If you ran it again, it should be the same technically, right?
Well,
I don't know if matters.
it depends. Sometimes they change, sometimes they stay the same. You'll notice they're changing right now.
Okay.
The reason why is because I don't have those contacts saved anywhere, do I?
No.
They're not in variables anywhere,
Okay.
right? So when I say contact.all, it goes to the database, gets those records, brings those records back, and then has to new up 2 new contacts and map the data in,
Oh.
and gives me those 2 new contacts. So every time it does a contact.new, it gets created in a different place. Every now and then, rarely, one will end up in the same place in memory by sheer luck. But most of the time, it's going to be in a new place. But if I were to do like x equals contact dot last, so that's John's account, that was the address up there, 007F, yada, yada, yada. Okay, you'll notice it's not changing anymore. And it's because I'm printing out the address for X.
Of a variable.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was a good question, though. What's up? Oh, you're just stretching. Okay, my bad. All right, so,
So when it created, it saved it?
when it create saves it immediately. Yes. There's also an update command that will just call an update, but we'll get into all those later. Right now what I want to talk to is the similarity between active record models and array filtering. So we have to filter all the time on arrays. In your homework with books and stuff like that, y'all had to do it. Finding objects by title, all this kind of stuff, right? No, nobody's nodding.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Woo. All right. So, what method did you use to do that? If I gave you a title, you had a array of books.
Map.
No.
Find.
Okay. What if I said all books that named this, not just the first one? Find would return the first one. Select. That's right. Okay. You can, emphasizing can, call that on the class. Don't do it. Okay? You get a different method which is far superior to the filtering that you get with select and reject and stuff like that when you're dealing with active record collections. Okay? And I'll emphasize a little bit more about efficiency and how to make sure you're making your queries run efficiently later. But this one makes a little bit more sense reading out anyway. It's where. So I want to find a contact, or all contacts rather, where, okay, and then in here I provide my conditions. It will accept a hash. So I can write it, let's say I'm looking for last names. I can write it this way, or I can write it the way I kind of prefer, that way. It's going to return me all contacts where last name was equal to Macy. We only have one in the system, but you can see that it did that because it returned me in an array, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. If not, it would say nil. If not, it'd say nil.
If not, it would say nil. Now, I want to do the same thing, but I want to do the same thing with select. So I'm going to do a select block here. And I'm going to write it to where I say that. Okay, so I'm selecting all contacts where the last name is equal to Macy, right? Everybody see that? All right, I got the same result. Why is that one bad? Why is that one detrimental, painful, hurtful, in every way evil?
Bad habits.
No, worse.
Oh.
Destructive habits. There's nothing wrong with using select on a regular array. Do it. That's what it's there for. When you're querying with active record, though, something bad happens. Okay? Look at the difference in the queries that run here. Alright? When I used where and provided my conditions, it built a query that said find me the contacts where the last name is Macy. You don't have to be able to read that fluently to kind of understand, okay, it's filtering by some degree. When I did it with select, what did it do?
Contacts from all contacts.
It returned all contacts. And then it looped through all of the contacts in memory, finding those that had a last name that matched.
So wouldn't it take a long time to just allow?
If I had 100,000 contacts, it'd probably crash the app. Not good.
Overload. And why it's pink?
Well, no, it's pink because it alternates color so you can emphasize seeing the request. But this actually ran very quickly because, I mean, 0.1 milliseconds. That's pretty fast. But we only have 2 records in there, so it's going to be fast. This would still run okay with hundreds, even low thousands. But as soon as you started getting up into the thousands a little bit, I don't mean a lot, this is going to start hurting. badly. So when dealing with filtering on active record classes, when searching for active record models, use where. Use active record methods to find it. Because it will build SQL queries that will let it filter and find the data on the server, which is much more efficient than pulling back each record, newing it up, putting it inside of an object, and then filtering through the objects and throwing over half of them away. Okay. Oh, well, that took a lot longer than I wanted it to, but I don't think we're going to get to Rails navigation and partials today.
Alright.
You want to go on and talk about our potential project?
Yeah. How we come with the final project again?
Did you?
We're gonna start a kind of ongoing project.
We think it'd be
But,
more fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, and we're just gonna try to apply, a few things each week.
And I think we're going to try to do this as kind of a class group assignment, to where nobody's like doing kind of their own homework. We make one repository the whole class has access to, and we could all kind of collaborate together to do something that's a little bit bigger, a little bit more meaningful, have a lot more in class examples to go over, and could actually be pretty fun. And a good version of fun.
And yeah, you'll have a chance to be
Not the Jeremiah version.
Not the German version.
you have a chance to be creative and do some coding. And that we haven't nailed down the features of this application, so this is going to be kind of a democratic exercise as well. But basically, what we want to do is make a little game. And I don't know how many of you people in the class are as old as me, but when I was growing up, computer games sucked, and
No, they were just
They were
vintage.
retro.
they
They were
sucked.
retro.
They weren't retro at that time. They
Who
were
has
just
played like a text-based command line game? Okay, so everyone in here. That's what we're gonna make. I found out today they're called MUDs. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
It stands for multi-user dungeon, for those who don't
Yeah.
know. They are one of the oldest forms of gaming. They followed the development of old rogue-style games like Dwarf Fortress and Rogue, .hack or .slash or whatever it was, I don't remember. Those were all single-player kind of command-driven games, and then probably the most well-known single-player one came out called Zork. I don't know if you remember Zork. Yeah.
Didn't play it.
But we think it would be fun to kind of do that as a group. But the kind of beauty behind it is that it would really emphasize how to conceptually build objects, because you kind of have to visualize what are these objects in the game that I'm making. They've got attributes, they've got stats, you have to do things with them, they have to be able to interact. And depending on how deep we go with this and how well people are doing, we could take it pretty far and make some pretty cool stuff with it. So
You have a random die generator.
There may be some combat involved. So
I would
I
like
think
to-
starting off, yeah, definitely want combat. But starting off, we could, have a player. You can give that. You can enter certain instructions like where to move up, move north, move west, east, south. That would take you to a particular location. That location could have items. It could have monsters.
You're gonna have a backpack.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, you could pick stuff up. There's
That's right.
all kind of stuff we could do depending on how in depth we want to get here. So,
Remember those books, Choose Your Own Adventure?
And who?
yeah,
And who?
it'll be similar.
But who? I really. Never mind. I'm not even gonna bring this up.
What? Now I want to know.
No,
That's
it's,
a lot.
it's all right.
You can't do that.
No, but okay, we have to have some magic in it, right?
Yes.
All right, so
Poor guy.
we'll get to make some pretty elaborate stuff, some pretty cool stuff that you don't normally get to make. But we won't do it unless everybody in the class is kind of on board for doing it, because I could see a scenario where we start spending some major class time on this between this and a Rails assignment. This being the tool we use to really kind of deep seed object-oriented programming, and then continuing on with a large portion of the class period with our Rails development to give you some practical application development experience. But if anybody feels like this would detract from them getting where they want to be in this class, or if people feel like they just aren't interested in the idea, then that's okay. You don't have to feel pressured to do it. Is it something that everybody wants to do?
Yeah, sure.
Be an interesting alternative to probably going home and making sort classes.
Yes.
We will be writing some code that is
Pretty elaborate.
probably more basic than some of the examples. A lot of the code will be more advanced than some of the examples, but we're going to take it in small steps. But I see a scenario playing out that's probably pretty cool if it works out this way, because we'll be able to assign some homework going on. Okay, maybe people pair off in groups and y'all implement this, y'all implement this, and y'all implement this, and we'll see next week. And, you know, we go over what got implemented in class, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Could be pretty fun. And then we take it multiplayer.
Never dare.
Release it to the world.
I've already started the engine. So, I had to have something to do it for. Anyway.
An Unreal Engine.
No, stop it.
We're not doing Unreal Engine? I think it's already been made.
I like Unreal Engine, but
ASCII Unreal.
yeah.
We get Duke in here to give us some creative ideas. He can draw all the dragons. That
Yeah.
come up with.
No, there's no graphics. That's the rule.
No pixel art. I need pixel art.
We don't
No
even have to worry
pixel
about
art.
it. Draw a dragon.
What?
Equals
No
something.
pixel
No
art.
pixel art.
No ASCII art either.
Oh, come on, man.
Okay.
Can we
we'll
have
do that.
sound?
I have ASCII art.
We can have sound. I will be okay with sound.
Just play the.
Beeps. System beeps.
Yeah. No, like it's gonna be pretty odd. As soon as this thing starts up, have some like Hans Zimmer playing in the background, this massive orchestral thing going on. It's like, oh God, I can walk north.
It's gonna suck you in, man. We'll be playing this for hours.
How epic.
Yeah. Instead of Zork, we're gonna call it Dork.
I was thinking that too, but I didn't want to say it out loud. Everybody's
It's gotta be like Keeps and Wyverns instead of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
What'd you call it?
Keeps and Wyverns.
Nice.
Wyverns?
Yeah.
It's a
Wyverns.
dragon-esque.
Yeah. I'm a nerd, John Mason.
I don't know this word.
Yeah.
Wyvern?
I'm learning.
You've never heard of a wyvern?
Never heard.
Oh my God.
I'm on the same boat.
It is a synonym for dragon.
Oh, okay.
John Macy.
So these three are the biggest nerds.
Thanks, guys.
Gotcha.
I know what that was.
We're proud.
Oh, these four.
Has anybody in here actually
No.
played a mud before?
Played what?
Oh, what?
Played a mud before?
Played it before.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
There was one on Boltzmann.com. That was for the Harvey Birdman show.
Oh God.
Oh.
Okay.
It's a great show.
All right. Well.
Was Wagons East, not Wagons East, Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail.
But
But it
it
had
had
real
pretty good
graphic.
So some of these.
They had a remake of that one a while back though. Did they just come out with a remake for it? Like
Is it the same thing though? Is it turn-based?
Well, some are turn-based, some aren't. Some are more real-time stuff too.
Well, yeah.
Muds though have a
Yeah.
pretty lengthy history. Some go back to hitting the internet as early as the early '90s, and some are still running. And you can log on to them in your dang console through Telnet, and there's thousands of people on it. It's pretty ridiculous, but it's I don't know. It'll be a good creative playground for everybody, I think. So now you can make something utterly stupid and ridiculous and you have a home.
Yay.
So
Productivity.
So yeah, we'll probably we're gonna work on that a little on our own. get kind of a base
Formulated idea.
game design going. And
Because there's a lot that would hurt feelings if we tried to do it in class to start with.
Hurt feelings.
yeah, it's not gonna be designed by the
Yeah.
class, at least not to start with.
It would hurt feelings, punch grief bones.
Punch grief bones.
What?
Yeah, never heard that.
Are there
Nobody
any
watches The Office.
wyverns and-
God, it was like one of the best shows ever made.
But then it got canceled.
I watched Halt and Catch Fire. Did you?
Huh?
Did you
Heard of
watch
that?
Halt and Catch Fire.
No.
It goes back to what you were saying about the 80s and the 90s computer programming, and I was thinking of her
Oh
doing
yeah.
doing the turn-based MUDs, and I think I heard her say that one time or something like that.
Well, this
I'm not turn-based, sorry, but
real time.
yeah.
Now, right now, to start with, we're not planning on this one being interactive. I don't think this one's going to be multiplayer. It'll probably be sandboxed on your own machine, just because there's a lot of additional complexity that goes into making one that can work over a LAN network or
Yeah.
online, anything else like that. And while the code's not that bad for us, I mean, we looked at some libraries today. We're afraid it might confuse other people working in the code base, as in the rest of the class.
Everyone that doesn't do it professionally.
Yeah, and it's not because you couldn't learn it. It's just because there are a lot of concepts there that we're not going to come close to talking about in this class, like multi-threading and socket communication and whatnot. So
Sounds fun.
it is, but it's
We're gonna
turbulent.
keep it simple.
Yeah.
KISS.
Mm-hmm. So for homework tonight, we're gonna keep it light. We're just gonna kind of revisit that HTML page you guys created. I think we already talked about doing this once, where we're just gonna create a few more about us pages, and you can be creative on this as well. What we want to see is an index page with some sort of menu, and that you can make it any way you want, that links to these other pages. So for an example, you've already done the About Me page. Maybe you do one for your spouse or your parents or your pet. It really doesn't matter. And you know, throw some stuff on your pages that that maybe we hadn't talked about. Use some CSS selectors that we hadn't gone over in class. Just what we want you to do is kind of go out on your own, discover some things, and then implement them on a page. So I may get a little more specific on the assignment on Slack. I may add a few more requirements, but this is the basic thing that we're looking for.
The world is your oyster.
And also, might be a refresher on how to do that.
The videos are on YouTube.
Oh, that's great.
W3 wasn't it? W3
W3
schools.
schools,
W3 schools is a big help too. But yeah, we covered in class most of what basic HTML needs to get going, aside from some additional CSS.
And
knowledge
these
and
tutorials
whatnot.
are pretty great.
They're actually really freaking good, to be honest. Avoid the JavaScript ones. Don't want anyone's brains blowing up because they're trying to learn too many languages at once. But yeah, the HTML and CSS stuff, pretty much anything under there. I would also recommend, some of you I know have already started throughout the course looking at Rails through some online tutorials and whatnot. There is one pretty large tutorial that's out there on the official Ruby on Rails site. I don't know who all's looked at that, but it's just called Getting Started with Rails. I would start, if not doing that project, I would start just reading through it a little bit. Maybe a little bit each night. You can go through a little bit. It's not actually that long if you're just reading. But it shouldn't take you very long to get up to about chapter 5, because chapters 1 through 4 is like 3 pages. So there's not much really going on there. But by the time you get to chapter 5, you're actually doing stuff in Rails, and immersion's going to be the ticket to really getting over that steep Rails learning hump we were talking about. So if you can do it at home, and that help reinforce what you're getting here, that'll be good. That way, at least some of the terminology might not go over your head. So I'd say if by next class you can have, let me see. I would probably try to have up through chapter 5. Maybe up to chapter 5. You don't have to start chapter 5, but have everything up to chapter 5 covered by Thursday, because that's about lined up with where we'll be picking up when we start doing our Rails application on Thursday. Thursday we're going to plug in our data stuff and our web stuff and finally let Rails do some of what it's good at. So,
Any questions on tonight's class or the homework?
I'm gonna have to do a lot of YouTube surfing.
Yeah.
So
That's not a question.
Did anyone notice my screen is yellow?
Yeah,
It looks
just
really
didn't
good.
want to bug you about it.
It's an app called Flux. If you're interested.
I thought my club line.
it's much
What's it
better.
for?
It's much better for the eyes.
Yeah, it takes the blue out of your screen towards bedtime. It's supposed to like the new feature on the phone. Yeah.
Is that what they did with the update
Uh huh.
on this and iPad?
I think it works. I really think I notice a difference because before I go to bed, I'm like this.
Yeah,
You know,
me too.
It's just
Flux is free, but if you got an iPhone, it's a built-in feature.
God, let's drink like 7 cups of coffee in the morning to get up.
It's FLX.
8.
F.lux. That may be the website.
Yeah. F.lux. It's a play on words.
Yeah.
It's not in the App Store. Lux.
No, you don't get to the App Store. I don't think. But yeah, I've been trying it out and I like it. This mixed with the phone.
I do have a question.
Yeah. What's up?
I need to do any of that?
Maybe.
Builder?
No, maybe. Just messing. Because you could be installing this the rest of the night if you're not careful.
Oh yeah, you're already screwed. That's great.
Yeah. You're alright. Well, you were.
Is that just an eyesight kind of thing?
Okay.
Well, they say that the blue actually like tricks your brain into thinking it's daylight, so it screws up your circadian rhythm, like your
You don't need that. So.
Oh yeah, that's why I couldn't sleep last night.
yeah, that's what it is. The TV puts out blue light. I mean, all these devices put out the light. So
One word.
I suppose I wouldn't have that problem, though. I wouldn't want anything on my computer anyway that changes
I think it
the
has
color
some
on my screen.
too. It's made by the same people. But
yeah, it's. I mean,
it's
I
a
don't know.
visual
It's
interface
not
that
pretty,
lets you
but
interact with your
I like my
Because I
sleep.
like to make
Postgres databases.
art on my computer too, and having altered colors is not a good idea.
Yeah.
I keep trying to download this stupid